What is up, everyone? Welcome back to King Pilled. I have got two little Yorkies sitting in here who very much did not want to come in here, but I can't leave them out there because one of them already took a dump on the floor today. So, okay, just making sure they're minding their P's and Q's over there. One of them is pretty charming. He's actually pretty sweet. I think he's like 9, and he listens pretty well, and he just kind of wants to sit and hang out with you and snuggle, and he plays occasionally. The other one is 1 and is one of the single dumbest animals that I've ever seen. He's there's kind of a sweetness to his dumbness, but he is just every time we have him around our dog, our dog goes out, goes to the bathroom or something. Our dog's like 45, 50 pounds, and he's got this little, probably, 3-pound Yorkie that just follows him relentlessly everywhere, sniffing his dick. The Yorkie, the 1-year-old, is not fixed, and he is just obsessed with sniffing my dog's dick, and it's driving my dog crazy. Fortunately, my dog's sweet, so he's bared his teeth and kind of snapped at him a few times, but he hasn't really gone at him. Now we're kind of wishing that he would just bite him. Just bite him and get it over with, and so he doesn't have to just follow him around and relentlessly harass him. Josiah, no, we're not doing the 2 turtles joke today. How do you say 2 turtles in Spanish? No, you did it. Oh, no, I was too late. All right, well, I didn't really have any funny clips lined up for today, so there's your funny clip of the day. Actually, that's not true. I do have some, but they're a little less pure entertainment and more, they kind of got a little something to them. I'm still trying to get all of my tabs sorted out here because I've got a whole bunch, and I had to spend 5 minutes running around chasing these dogs, trying to get them to come in here so I could lock them in. So let's see which ones we're going to do first. I've got those. This one goes over here. This one is for after this one. No, where did that other one go? Ah, shit. Did I close one of them? I might have closed one of them. So we'll just skip that one for today. It was a really interesting job, or like business idea. Oh, here it is. We'll start with this. So, longtime guy in the, he showed up on this show more than once. Chris Kerner. I actually found out yesterday that I know someone that is, who knows him and is in business with him. So this guy, I love this channel. So completely non-political, just for your own personal edification. He's a great guy to follow. He's at MHP_guy. So like mobile home park guy. I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. And he's got a very interesting Substack. He's got a podcast, and he also tweets, and he tweets out these really interesting jobs. People are bringing interesting jobs to him all the time, and then he can either choose to invest in them or he just passes them on and is kind of like free marketing for them. Maybe he charges them. I don't know. That'd be a pretty good business model. Hey, I've got a big Twitter following. If you come give me money, then I will tweet about your thing and put it in like this kind of informative, educational way. So you and I both benefit from it. He says, I just discovered a new untapped home service vertical that is printing cash on repeat. Minimum job sizes of 1,800 to 5,000. Google Trends graph up and to the right. 35+% net margins. Cheap top of page bids on Google ads. Way more demand than supply and low startup costs. What is it? Lawn leveling. Much thanks to the below DM that tipped me off and sent me down a rabbit hole. Crazy, right? I found a lawn leveling business owner willing to come on my pod/YouTube and spill the beans on everything. He's got no franchise or course to sell. It's just good content, baby. My mission is to get 1,000 of you to quit your jobs. Subscribe at the links below to hear watch when it goes live. If you know of any other lawn leveling business owners, please send them my way. Would love to chat with them as well. So this is the DM that he got from a guy on June 21. The guy DM'd him and said, had a lawn leveling quote today. Dude rolled up in an AMG. Said they're booked for the next 300 jobs through the summer. The minimum ticket is $1,800. And it's funny that a business like this would be successful right now, where there's the big narrative about the economy doing rough. It's rough for a lot of people. But when you take the averages, like on average, yeah, things are rough, but the median is another story. So there are a lot of people, there are still a ton of people out there who have money, who want to and need to spend it. If they recognize the dollars aren't getting any more valuable the longer you hold on to them, better spend them on stuff. Well, they've got the money to spend, and they will spend on something like leveling your lawn. So here's the Google Trends data. Starting in 2016, there was some spurts early on, but starting in 2016, 2017, 2018, so like 2018 to 2020, it really jumped. And I'd imagine this is in part because people were stuck at home. They're not able to go out anywhere. They're at home and they're like, well, I guess my lawn sucks. Let's get the lawn fixed. And then you start building a trend where, hey, I got my lawn fixed. And then I have a family party and people come over and they're like, man, your yard is so much nicer. What'd you do? Oh, yeah, I got a lawn leveler. I had a guy come out and level my lawn for me. Oh, wow, this is awesome. How much did it cost you? Oh, it's $3,000. Oh, that's not too bad. So for $3,000, I could hold a lot better parties at my house? Sure. Let me call it. Give me the number of the guy. And pretty soon you have a mimetic trend that builds out. More and more people want it. And the more people want it, the more people want it. Because human beings are desiring machines. We inform our desires by other people's desires. So even me just talking about this and projecting this as something desirable, whether you agree with me or not, there's something that's happening in your brain that's rewiring you to think this sort of thing has more prestige and more value to it. So here's some of the different Google keyword searches. Lawn leveling service near me, yard leveling service, lawn grading, yard leveling, yard grading, lawn grading, backyard leveling, lawn grading services. So these are the terms people are searching for, so you can kind of get an idea of what they're thinking. And then here's just a quick video of it. And so presumably, this video comes from some guy who does this. Like, this is his business. And there's so many businesses out there like this where people have these little kind of niche service businesses, and they just record themselves doing it throughout the day, and they figure out creative ways to post it on social media, which itself popularizes these kinds of things. It's great marketing. You can even monetize if you get clips to go viral, then you can monetize the platform that way. And you build out a big network. All these sorts of things are all adjacent to what would be kind of just a mundane like service that you're just providing to people. You're on the level of a gardener. You're just like a specialized gardener, which people don't generally associate with a ton of prestige, illegal immigrants and such. But this takes something that would normally be not all that prestigious and makes it much more prestigious. These guys build up some celebrity around these gigs that they do, and they could turn it into a full-fledged like top 10% income level career. One of the most interesting ones to me is the guys that do they go and they just they'll find someone who is like disabled or something and has a super overgrown yard, and they go and they just clean it up. And they show up, they knock on the door, they're like, hey, I'll clean your yard for free. You just have to agree to let me film it. And then they just film themselves mowing, weed eating, edging, all these things, because there's a huge market of people out there that find it really therapeutic to just sit and watch that. Like, this is nice. Sometimes when I'm sitting and doing working on some spreadsheets or doing designing a logo or something like that, I'll put this sort of thing on in the background. It'll just be on one screen, one corner. It's just someone doing lawn work with music over it or something like that. And it just kind of pacifies the voices. So these guys are explicitly doing something for free, but they go so uber mega viral that they can support themselves easily. These guys, there's some of these guys that, based on the amount of traffic they're getting, I'm going to assume they're probably making millions of dollars a year. Like if you have videos that are in the 40, 50 million range on YouTube, those guys are easily pulling at least 1 million. And that would be just from YouTube. Who knows what other avenues of monetization they've got. So this is a white pill thing. This is what part of we spend so much time focusing on all the politics and all the corruption and the backstabbing and the secret influencers and the degenerative effects of technology and all these kinds of things. But this sort of thing is awesome. This reality is just as real as those realities. And I would say there's more power in this reality than there is in those. This is the sort of thing, this is the spirit that wins at the end of the day. So I love giving any sort of props or publicity to this sort of thing that I can. All right, let's go next to this was just a good zinger I saw on Twitter. Steve Bannon going to prison now. So the Lincoln Project. Anybody thought about the Lincoln Project in like 5 years? They're some of the single worst human beings on the planet. Just absolutely wretched human beings with a very interesting past. Their leadership is implicated in some very interesting things that should be scandals but aren't really. Anyways, yeah, they were active in, let's say, the 60s and 70s. Anyways, so the Lincoln Project, they say the cost of being Trump's bitch, becoming a prisoner's bitch, with this video of Steve Bannon. Which, I mean, if I was a Lincoln Project sympathizer, I would probably think this was a good own.
Steve, a wise man once said, kick someone's ass the first day or become someone's bitch. Of course, you may run into some problems on both of those fronts. First of all, you look about as intimidating as a butterfly fart. So kicking anyone's ass will probably result in becoming someone's bitch anyway. Of course, then comes the problem that you've clearly let yourself go for, well, I guess you've always looked that way, haven't you? Either way, you should probably explore some more options. We humbly recommend you check out the skinheads. They're organized, their haircuts are easy, and there's a really solid chance you all agree on just about everything. And look, we all get it. This is a big interruption in the election season, and you're barely gonna have time to plan your next coup. But try to take some time to reflect on things, okay? We'll be here waiting when you get out.
Okay, so I'm sorry for subjecting you guys to that, but I had to do it because I have some thoughts on it. Fisher King said the Lincoln Project finally talking about something they understand and know about, gay sex. And I don't care about this zinger. This zinger's a good one. Kate says the Lincoln Project should know all about being someone's bitch. That's right. She probably saw the tweet. Pascal says, didn't Eric Prince basically threaten the staff at the prison where Bannon is being held? Yes, we played that clip yesterday. That was very much a threat. And Eric Prince is a guy who I would take seriously when he makes threats. The Lincoln Project, on the other hand, is not. Like, one of the things about these utter pure distilled shit libs is, like, their defining characteristic is their lack of self-awareness. They're just complete, shameless lack of self-awareness. That the Lincoln Project, the guys associated with the Lincoln Project, who conveniently don't ever show their faces affiliated with it because they know they don't want their appearance affiliated with this thing that's supposed to be all big and tough and edgy, bro. Because they're a bunch of doughy little eggheads. They're the types of guys who spent their entire grade school career with their heads in toilets. So you could tell then in the way they try to project is all like, they get this like syrupy, sexy woman who's like talking about this edgy, cool stuff, and like they're projecting their own image of what they think is like an edgy, cool thing. And there's a really deep irony to this as well, that these are the people who are the most ardent, true believers in their vision of liberal America. And absolutely fundamental to this message are two stories that I can think of right off the top of my head. One of them would be MLK writing a letter in prison and being so influential in spite of the fact that he's the letter from Birmingham jail. He's been imprisoned, and yet that doesn't stop him. He breaks beyond his chains and he ignites a movement. And the other one would be on the flip side, There's this book of a guy, this guy wrote about his struggle while he was in jail. And this is the origin story of literally Satan incarnate. Is he was put in jail by his political opposition, and he was so massively influential that he was able to influence activities out beyond that. And it just set him on his way to making history. Somehow these people contain both of these thoughts at the same time. There is zero intuition with them. They have the shallowest, most schizophrenic worldview of all time. You could think of intuition as being like, I have like the discrete thought or idea that you put the border around it, and like, this is a concept here. This is, I have a mouth sound that I attribute to this discrete mind picture. And then I have these other discrete pictures. These exist here as isolatable entities, but then what's between them? It's not just empty space. There's like a network between them. There's these networks of connections, some of them discovered, some of them undiscovered. And intuition would be like the ability to make these connections. Intuition would be something, it would be like that field that's between these discrete particles and the use of that field or the awareness of that field simultaneously. That would be intuition. And these guys are able to hold completely divergent worldviews, preach two completely oppositional polar narratives at the same time, because there is zero awareness of that connection. This is the absolute essence of liberalism, the peak of the degeneracy. And you can see it's a disability. It's like if you think of a human being and you have this thing I just described, well, to be a functional human being, you probably want to be fluent in both of these things. Like you want to be able to pick out the discrete particles, but you also want to be aware of the connections between them that implicate them, because that helps you pick out more discrete particles. Being completely oblivious of either the discrete particles or of the web, the ether, you might say, that connects them, being completely oblivious of either one of those things would rightly be considered a disability. Being completely over-indexed on intuition or completely over-indexed on autism, that either one of those is not good. So these guys are quite literally mentally disabled. There is a disability about the way that their mind functions that makes it less than optimal. So, again, this is a white pill. Our enemies are literally mentally disabled. If you can't outfox them, you're hosed. Of course, I don't think that the Lincoln Project is itself some major influencer. They're like BLM or Antifa, like some of these groups that they have power, but really they're just like they get let off the leash every now and then they think big thoughts about themselves. Okay. I mentioned this clip yesterday, so I just wanted to play it as proof of my, I wasn't just making stuff up. Share. Obama DHS Secretary Johnson articulates a case for Biden on Morning Joe.
A presidency is more than just one man, one woman. It's an administration. I would take Joe Biden on his worst day at age 86, so long as he has people around him like Avril Haines, Samantha Power, Gina Raimondo supporting him over Donald Trump any day, with the crowd that was behind him on January 6, 2021.
Former Secretary.
So now they're just openly saying it. They're just openly saying that the office of the president is not that important. It's the people that he puts around him that are really important. So we could just kind of elect anyone. It doesn't really matter who the person is himself. He's just a vehicle to getting these people into place, the people that actually matter, the ones that actually make a difference. And of course, the people he lists off is like 3 of the worst human beings on the planet. Avril Haines, Samantha Power, and Gina Raimondo. Duffhead says, quiet part out loud now. They're to the point of just, there's no wizard anymore. It's like the curtain has been pulled back. It's just a like creepy little old weird guy sitting back there pulling the strings. It's very obvious. I just realized that I haven't paid much attention to the chat here, so let me catch up on some of what you guys have been saying. Duffhead says lawn leveling is actually not very difficult to do. Josiah says anyone who's ever run barefoot on a golf course knows this is super cool. Yes, there's something very. I think it's one of the reasons why people enjoy playing golf so much is because there's something that's very therapeutic about being on a golf course, having the experience of being in nature that's really beautifully manicured and maintained and has structure and intentionality to it. It's very like healing to the mind, which I think is also why it's a sport that, they were joking about it the other day, but it's actually one of the few sports that even old men can do very, very well. They tail off and they can't compete at the absolute peak, but you could play baseball a lot longer than you can play, like tennis or baseball, football. You can play, did I say baseball before? You can play golf for like late. Like I've played with guys who were, I don't know, probably 12 handicaps, 12, 15 handicaps, something like that, like consistently shooting in the 80s, who were like 75. So, they can't drive as long, but they're very straight. So I think there's something to that it's a sport it's a gentleman's sport. It's an aristocratic sport. All right, let me see some of these others. Chris says a lot of immigrants are doing well in today's society and work like this. We had lawn landscaping done in our backyard. Not sure if they were immigrants, but they all spoke Spanish and told me how business was booming. Yes. We have guys come do our lawn care. They come, I think like every 2 weeks. We pay them $50 and they mow the front and the back. And it takes them, there's 3 of them. It takes them maybe 10 minutes to do the whole thing. And they come in, everything out, clean everything up, take off again. So they're probably doing, I don't know, if it takes them an average of 15 or 20 minutes a house, they're doing 3 houses. So they're making $50, $150 an hour. So they're each making $50 an hour if they're splitting it 3 ways. Like and then they do that for, 8, 10 hours a day. They're doing pretty well. There's no reason why native-born Americans can't be doing this. You could probably make more money doing landscaping than you could make in a lot of like tech jobs that require degrees. You can make significantly more as a landscaper, which kind of has an interesting implication about the future of what jobs, what industries are going to be developing more prestige and have more social cachet, have more say on the way things are done. Because there's a certain mind. It's not just the industry itself. It's also the type of mind that would, number one, observe that phenomenon and then have the discipline and the humility to invest in it and take themselves in that direction. So there's a natural selection process here for the people who figure out the ways to hack the system. They have an opportunity to leverage themselves way ahead of everybody else because of the explosive magnitude potential of some of these technologies and some of these phenomena, and then and the relative cheapness of going about it, and then the fact that there's so many people who aren't willing to look this way, and they just kind of stay stubbornly stuck in their lane, so they don't see the potential fast lane on the outside. Let's see here. Josiah says, the devil imagines himself a victim, revenge of the nerds. Yes. It's all resentment. Lenin also influenced Soviet activity while in prison. Yep. Josiah, as kids, they mistook playful banter as evil bullying, lack of human institution. Yes. Yeah, that's right. A lot of this comes from like poor socialization. Not like they don't understand how people work. Because they're not really, they don't work. Like, they're people who don't work, so they assume everybody else are people who don't work. And I mean, by don't work, I mean like they don't function properly. Okay. You guys are popping in here today. Wit says, I have a lawn care company. I'm literally on my mowing route right now. It takes me 4 days a week and I make 8 to 10K a month. And I work on my own stuff and do woodworking in my off time. That is phenomenal. See right there. And what did it cost you to get started with that? Like you had to buy a mower, probably a weed whacker, a hedge trimmer, maybe a chainsaw, if that. and then you have to have a trailer and a truck, then so you might be, especially if you already have a truck, you just have to get a trailer and everything. You might be like $5 to $7 grand in if you're just starting and you don't already have some of these things. Most people already have a lawnmower and a weed eater, and you can just start with that. That's great. All right. Let me make sure I've got these next clips in order. Here, let's do this one real quick. So, you all know here at the ASTROLABE and on King Pilled in general, we are big Tucker Carlson fans. So, Revenant says, Tucker's official YouTube channel is using funk beats and clips. You'll love to see it. So I'm sure this is going to get something demonetized if I hasn't already. But this is great for the fact that this is Tucker's channel himself that put this video out. And you'll see what he means by, I didn't know what funk beats meant, and then I realized after I listened to it. But it's also just awesome because we're also nicotine appreciators, and this is a reminder to me. And Tucker's got a great little rant about nicotine here.
I watched your ABC this morning in my hotel room. 4 Australians found dead of what they suspected was a drug OD. The next story was the Australian government's new law that will require a prescription to buy nicotine products, which, by the way, has the byproduct of raising testosterone levels and making people a little harder to command. That's a massive threat! Why don't you press your ministers and prime minister, what are you doing about drug use? And the answer is nothing. Instead, they're hassling adults who want to use nicotine, which I would highly recommend to every person in this room as a life-enhancing, God-given chemical. That's just my view.
On that note, I might pass you over to Andrew Green from the ABC.
Oh, I love it! You're gonna take my nicotine? It's dangerous.
Good afternoon, Tucker.
A prescription for nicotine. Okay. I watched.
It's so good. This is right-wing art. Oh, man. Cooper and I were sitting and listening to Party Boy 69 yesterday. And if you guys haven't started listening to Jungle Bunker Telemetric Funk, you need to. You go listen to the last episode he put out, Radio Agartha. And it is just such freaking good music. And then Cooper this morning was listening to Soulbra, who apparently is a pretty good DJ in his own right, which I didn't know. Man, that whole this whole thing, I just love it. It's so good. Josiah says, on God, shit has never been as real as it is now. Zoomers down bad, coming back. If we're gonna wind up with a Joker character, it's gonna be Tucker. He's already got the laugh. And you can see he's starting to lose it. And I say that with great love and affection. Duffhead says, Matt, supposedly 528 hertz frequency has been shown to increase levels of testosterone. You know, I would not be surprised by that at all. Every new thing I hear about frequencies and resonance and all the electromagnetism, all these sorts of things, there's something to it. There is something that's very, very understudied and underappreciated about the nature of the world that we live in from a harmonic perspective. Hold on. Where's the other dog? Oh, there he is. Okay, I freaked out for a second because I thought the dog was getting into something. And that actually we're going to talk about something related to that here in just a minute. But before that, let me get these other 2 stories real quick. This one is Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett he's been known for a long time as he's one of the signatories to the charity that like give away all of our wealth charities or whatever. He's been that, if I'm not mistaken, he's been on the record as saying that he's not going to leave like big inheritances to his children, because this is part of the liberal effort to the philosophical liberal effort to cut off a people from its spirit. So says Howie, this is just some screenshots from a piece here. Says Howie 69 runs the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, whose homepage features a lot of armed soldiers. He has also spent a lot of time and money arming and patrolling with the border police in Cochise County, Arizona. So this is Warren Buffett's son. Over the past several years, 64-year-old Howard Buffett, using wealth supplied by his father, has been waging his own border war in Cochise County. This has included the arming of a private volunteer group, importing privately employed enforcement personnel, and funding the chemical defoliation of a substantial portion of the county's border with Mexico. Buffett has also purchased the loyalty of and influence over the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. He has done this through a steady stream of gifts and grants totaling tens of millions of dollars used to buy guns, vehicles, surveillance equipment, helicopters, and other toys. He is showing us how it's done. And it says here, Warren Buffett is handing control over $100 billion to his 3 kids, one of whom is building a literal private anti-immigrant militia. Santiago Pliego says, extraordinarily based. Ben Davidson says, based. Everyman says, anyone have a link to sign up for border duty? Geo. I didn't see the replies on this are actually really good. Finally, a billionaire trust fund kid using money for good. Hopefully more trust fund babies wake up and do the same. One look at the Constitution, and it's obvious the founders would have thought this is the most based thing ever. Government neglecting it, so private militia protecting border. This is what happens when you don't let Border Patrol do its job. Could have prevented this. We need a complete immigration halt and mass deportation of all illegals. Finally, some billionaire heirs that aren't complete sellouts to the establishment narratives. Let me see what this other link was, because I thought there was something in here about this. Yeah. Okay, here. At some point in the next few years, a charitable trust will be created that will immediately be the largest such entity in the world. Amazingly, no one seems to have given much thought to what it might do or where it will spend its money. Why it matters. Warren Buffett's yet-to-be-named charitable trust will be 100% effective from day one at ensuring that his estate pays no tax on the billions he has made. Whether and how it will have any philanthropic impact seems to be a secondary consideration. Ha ha. Tut, tut, tut. How dare you? The Longhouse is coming for you, Warren. Brutal lines from Felix Salmon on Buffett's decision to renege on planned bequests to the Gates Foundation and instead let his kids give away his fortune. We'll take a look at the article here. So Warren Buffett pledges $100 billion for nothing in particular. At some point in the next few years, a charitable trust... Okay, that's the part I just read. The big picture. I fucking hate this journalism style where it's like bite-sized chunks and it's super patronizing. What's happening? Why it matters, the big picture, where it stands, between the lines, the intrigue, the bottom line. Fucking millennials. At some point, the charitable trust that Buffett intends to create upon his death will contain all of the shares of Berkshire Hathaway he still owns, a sum currently worth more than $127 billion. By contrast, the largest current philanthropy in the world, the Gates Foundation, has total assets of $76 billion. Why these sorts of foundations matter and why these smug little retards, they don't understand this. They don't understand that this is the role that they're playing. But what they're doing is they're effectively advocating for the rights of mobile personal banks for nation states. That's what these billionaires are. The Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, these are billionaires who were created artificially, and then out of philanthropy, they delivered this great foundation that just does charitable work and philanthropic work. And what these NGOs really do is they function as a background government. And it's much easier when you're getting to levels of investment and like even simply wire transferring money of certain sums. It's much easier to just say, hey, Bill, you're going to be the chairman of the board of this new company that's being acquired, that is just so happened going to have this great technological breakthrough right after the bankrupt company was acquired. And you're going to invest $500 million from your foundation into grants for abolishing hunger or whatever. And then this just becomes a pretext for them acting as a shadow government, where the actual elected government is just the front. So that's what these guys are. This is the regime journalists are just running cover for that whole operation because they're fucking dumb enough to think that someone like Bill Gates cares about charity. Or that it may even be that Bill Gates cares about charity. He's just an empty suit. He's just a cutout that is propped up, and there's a whole mythology around him. And then he traipses around the country, around the world, goes from this place to that place, influencing things. And everyone's like, oh, he's the billionaire. Look how successful he was. He must be an absolute genius. So when he weighs in and he gives his opinion, we need to put a lot of weight behind that. When really he's just a voice for his handlers who say, "Hey, go say this, go advocate for this particular thing," and then we'll be working on the elected official side in the meantime. So where it stands. At one point, the Gates Foundation expected to receive the bulk of Buffett's request and even put together a plan nicknamed Project Lincoln, interesting, to prepare for the massive bequest. Now, however, in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Buffett has declared that the Gates Foundation has no money coming after my death. Instead, his fortune will go to a charitable trust to be administered by his 3 children. They can spend the money only by unanimous agreement. Buffett's 3 children don't make for natural charitable bedfellows. Susie, 71, runs the Sherwood Foundation, which is focused on Nebraska. Peter, 66, runs the Novo Foundation, which supports initiatives that promote a holistic, interconnected, and healing vision for humanity. What does that even mean? Especially in the small town of Kingston, New York. Supports initiatives that promote a holistic, interconnected, and healing vision for humanity. So what they're doing is they're doing like consciousness research and like people firing guns with their brains and that sort of thing in Kingston, New York. Howie, 69, runs the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, whose homepage features a lot of armed soldiers. He has also spent a lot of time and money arming and patrolling with the border police in Cochise County, Arizona. Buffett has charged his children with, quote, responding to any future changes to the laws governing taxes and foundations, but has seemingly given them little, if any, guidance on the giving money away part of their new job. Because it's not giving money away. Oh my God. That's in line with his past practice. Buffett's personal involvement in charitable giving, he wrote in 2021, has essentially been nil. We have not talked about what we will do, Susie Buffett told the Wall Street Journal. The Gates Foundation had the capacity to absorb Buffett's donations and has used his money to help save millions of children's lives. The new mega philanthropy, by contrast, it's so fucking Orwellian. The new mega philanthropy, by contrast, will have to build up such capacity from scratch and without any kind of overarching vision, mission statement, or criteria for what success might look like. This Felix Salmon. Can we see what this guy... Let's look at this guy's face. Let's try his Twitter profile. I'm sure he doesn't face fag. Oh, here he is. Yes, this is exactly what this guy looks like. Physiognomy is not something, the phenomenon that physiognomy is not just something restricted to, it's not just something that you can pick up on by, looking at someone. You can tell someone's physiognomy through their language, there's like a tone, there's like a digital physiognomy where you can just the tone of someone's writing, the patterns in their thought, you could tell exactly what they look like. There's certain guys, not going to name names, but there's certain guys among so-called dissident right-wing Twitter that you could tell very obviously this dude is skinny, fat, bald, and middle-aged. And you could tell he kind of has like a scowl on his face all the time. He's like perpetually dick mad. And you could just tell by the way that they write, by the way that they talk. It's very rare that you see one of these guys get doxxed and you're like, whoa, he doesn't look like I expected him to at all. It's like, yeah, of course he looked like that. You could tell in the way that he writes, in the way that he portrays himself on the internet. This guy, you could tell exactly what he looks like from his writing. Oh, sorry, I wasn't actually showing it to you. All this time. Yeah, here you go. Yes, this is Felix Salmon. This smug little twink. Okay. So what's really interesting about this to me is that's a big decision. Going from you have the two of the most prominent billionaires who have this agreement that the Gates Foundation, which is obviously an extremely important, well-connected NGO. There's tremendous amount of pressure to support and align with it. And he has this agreement that he's going to give away like hundreds of billions of dollars to them. And then he's like, nope, not giving you anything. Something changed. I don't know what. I don't really know what to do with this because I don't see Warren Buffett as, Mr. Based billionaire, not remotely. So I am assuming that this is entirely self-interested for some sort of reason that I expect would be basically nefarious. But I don't really know what to make of this, except it's yet another data point indicating some sort of rift among the ruling class, where the regime is falling apart. And the Gates Foundation's response and the fact that an article like this is being written tells me that they don't understand. They don't know what's going on. They may have an inkling, but whatever it is, they don't have any sort of leverage over him, it seems. It's kind of hard to have leverage over someone that you were depending upon for millions of dollars. Okay. So I think, let me just run through my tabs here real quick and see if I had anything else on random one-off subjects. Nope, this is women stuff, Trump stuff. We'll pull that back over here. Here, I got a one-off thing. This is a good inspirational thing from Joe Rogan, believe it or not. More woman stuff, more Trump stuff, more women stuff, and Candace Owens. So we'll go to Candace Owens, then we'll do the Trump stuff, then we'll wind it up with the women stuff, because that's probably going to be the longest segment. Let me see what you guys are saying here in the chat. Oh, interesting. Josiah says, our plant in our prayer corner was close to death when we came home after a 5-day holiday. 2 days later, it's booming. And I assume this soil wasn't dry or anything. Prayer vibes, I don't know. So I assume that this wasn't from like a watering schedule change, because I don't think it would stand out to you if that was the case. So it is entirely true that praying around plants will make the plants grow better. So it seems that there's even, not even when you're not trying to, you're still having that effect. Vengeful Son vibes with with Warren Buffett's son, Howie Buffett. We'll have to keep an eye on Howie Buffett. Wit says, Buffett's daughter Susie has literally poured tens of millions into infrastructure in the Okoboji, Iowa region, the place that just got flooded. Interesting. That is a very interesting thought. She's pouring money into making a paradise in the middle of nowhere-based red Iowa. When you say paradise, what is the meaning of paradise there? Is this like Orwellian paradise or actual paradise? Buffett has been sitting in cash more and more recently. He's been buying the Occidental Petroleum. Let's see. Yeah, they really see the Gates Foundation as a foundational institution. Chris says, Buffett is the face of America's buy and hold boomer strategy. Funny how many hodlers have bought into the same mindset. Either way, it's pure banker propaganda. Yeah, thank you, Cooper. Thank you for putting a fine point on it. I wonder the legality of that. Often verbal agreements can be binding. Well, I would imagine that trying to sue Warren Buffett, like having Bill Gates sue Warren Buffett and try to force him to give over his entire estate, I would love to see that happen. This would be just top-notch entertainment. But I can't imagine, can you imagine a court trying to enforce something like that against Warren Buffett? I don't know. I don't even know how, it would cost him a micro fraction of the entire amount to completely buy off anybody associated with it. So I would really like to see that. Josiah says Wall Street versus Davos is escalating. I think that's my takeaway from it. It's very clear that Wall Street and Davos are not on the same page. And this, to me, looks like Buffett throwing in his lot on the Wall Street side. And I don't know what his reasoning is for that. If it's purely pragmatic, if it's he predicts this is the winning side and he's just he's the buy and hold guy, so he just wants to buy and hold whatever's going to win. And he's kind of agnostic about what that actually is. So it's just he could be the completely what would be the term, like sociopathic investor, the investor that is not ideological in any sense whatsoever. It's strictly about the numbers. And so he's just like, okay, well, you guys were winning, so my money's with you. Now you guys are no longer winning, so my money is with the new guys who are winning. Perhaps, I don't know. Maybe he's been a secret based guy all along, and he's just been in deep hiding. Wit says, Susie started putting money in Okoboji in 2020 because we were always open. Said, fuck the COVID nonsense, and she hid here for 2 full years. The Buffetts were radicalized from COVID too. Interesting. Well, I have a new thing on my radar to keep track of. Watch what the Buffetts are doing. Okay. Josiah says, I literally told my wife last night, I've never heard of a Howard I liked. What a coincidence. Well, maybe that's I would trust Josiah's instincts. We're talking about the discrete particles and then the intuitive web. And Josiah is an extremely fluent traveler of the intuitive webs. So I'd be inclined to trust his intuition on this. I guess the cynical read of Howard would be, oh yeah, the rich guy gets to build up his own compound, and the rich guy doesn't have to experience immigration, but the rest of us do. To which I would say, well, if the rich guy doesn't want to experience it, then start doing things to make him not experience it, and he'll be happy to work with you. Okay, so quick quote here from Joe Rogan. This is a little kick in the pants for you. He says, the best advice I've ever known is live your life like you're the hero in your own movie. Right now is when the movie starts and your life is a shitbag disaster. Like those guys on the brink, they put the gun in their mouth and then they put it down because they see a photo of their daughter. Pretend that's you. Pretend that right now you're in the part of the movie where it starts and it shows you as a fucking loser. And just decide to not be a loser anymore. Live your life like there's a documentary crew following you around and you're analyzing your own behavior. Do what you'd want to do so that one day your kids would look back at it and look on it with pride. Like, wow, my dad was a bad motherfucker. He really did what he had to do. Now, this is like peak liberal, mid-wit, motivational advice. But it's also very true. It's entirely true. If you actually internalize this, no matter how it might make you cringe, if you just internalize it and start doing it, then it will actually change your mindset, which will change the things you do, which will change the way that the world responds to you. And you'll be surprised at the things that start popping into your lap. So even there's like two kinds of shit libs. There's the shit libs who are shit libs because their brains are broken. And then there's the shit libs who are shit libs because they just are existing in the water that they've always existed in. And they don't have, I guess, like a sort of natural curiosity to look out into the ether. But they just are kind of running on their factory settings, but they're not like disabled. There's a difference, and I don't know exactly what that difference is in substantive terms, but there is some good stuff within the naive wings of shit liberty. Okay, so then let's go to no notifications, no thank you. Let's check out what's going on with Candace Owens. Candace Owens' radicalization has been kind of interesting, and I haven't been watching it super closely, but I've been watching it from afar, and it's beginning to take a very interesting turn. So I'm just going off of the commentary on this. I haven't actually watched it yet because what happened after it is a bigger story to me. But so I haven't watched this yet. We get to see this here together for the first time.
Can you guys imagine being married to me? I mean, my poor husband, he rolls over. He's like, what are you reading? And I feel like a regular wife says something.
Yes, if I was married to her, if I imagine myself being married to her, and I would be like, yes, poor me. I've met Candace. People can change, and perhaps I got her on a bad day, but I did not have a good impression. I still appreciate a lot of the things that she says, but from a personal standpoint, she did not come off well.
I don't know, maybe a love series, Nora Roberts, sweeping her away. Me, on the other hand, he rolled over, he asked me, and I said, oh, I'm reading a flat earth theory. And it dawned into an entire conversation. He's like, why are you reading a flat earth theory? And I'm like, because somebody messaged me on Manect about it and they included some links and I'm just reading them. I don't know. I'm just an interested person. No matter what, if there's a bunch of people that believe something, I now want to know what it is that they believe. And of course, he pushed me on this and he was talking about the earth curvature and science. And I said to him, listen, I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a round earther. Actually, what I am is I am somebody who has left the cult of science. I have left the mega church of science because what I have now realized is that science, what it is actually, if you think about it, is a pagan faith. Live the other day, and again, I'm not subscribing to the flat earth theory at all. I just decided to read an article on it because why not? This person writes, hey Candace, I heard you mention flat earth on your live today and I had to reach out. Please, I'm imploring you to continue down the flat earth rabbit hole. because it's true. NASA has lied to us about the shape of our world, plain and simple. I believe the main reason being to separate us from God, because nobody would be able to deny him if people knew that we actually live in a place that necessitates the existence of a creator. Once you look, you will see that all of the evidence points to the earth being flat. The biggest indicators, in my mind, being the fact that we can see objects at a distance that should be hidden behind hundreds of feet by the curve of the earth. The fact that all modern technology assumes the earth is a flat topographical plane to function, airplanes, GPS, and the truly hilarious footage and abject lack of proof that we actually went to the moon. Reach out to YouTubers that have done the research for more information. And he offers some YouTubers, thanks. Here's what I will say to you. For more information.
Now, this person is an absolute hero because the person that I think it's a he, is pointing to is Austin Whitsitt. As we have talked about before, I have a lot of respect for Austin Whitsitt, and he's the one who has really made me think on this. My mind is not settled one way or the other, but I find his alternative model, which isn't really flat Earth per se, like it gets lumped into flat Earth and it's considered flat Earth because there's a flat component to it, but it's much more than just that. It's very elegant. So here's where I get to monetize. Yeah, this is where I'm going to get the little banner. You're going to get a little banner underneath the video here that says that tells you what you're supposed to believe on this, which that in and of itself should cause you to stop and ponder. But so, yes, we're going to talk more about Austin here in just a minute.
And he offers some YouTubers, thanks. Here's what I will say to you. I definitely believe the moon landing was faked. I had no coming back for me after reading Chaos and reading something else called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It just, I don't know, it's always seemed cartoonish to me. But then when you realize the government was up to in the 60s and how they were focused on creating a mass psychosis.
Anyways, so the point of this episode here is not to talk about the flat Earth thing per se. It's the fact that Candace Owens is talking about flat Earth and talking about the moon landing being faked. Now, part of given the experience that I had with her, I'm skeptical that she's doing this just purely of her own accord. That, I just, it just happened. My husband was reading about this, or my husband looked over and I was reading about this and someone sent it to me and we just, it's just a period, just an interest of mine that I'm just super open-minded and science is a pagan faith, which, she's saying all the right things, but I'm personally skeptical that Candace Owens is someone who's just arriving at all of these things organically. However, I don't know which would be more interesting, the fact that she's arriving at this organically or the fact that someone wants her to arrive at this and sees potential or there's some angle that's being played here. I don't know what the actual. I didn't know that she'd actually signed up with another a network. Here they got this thing called Minex. First time I've heard about it. Apparently it's associated with Patrick Bet-David and Valuetainment. So I don't know if maybe you guys know, she signed on with Patrick Bet-David. If she has, either way, she's doing something with Patrick Bet-David, and I find that very interesting. Because Patrick Bet-David is also doing some very interesting things, and he's got a very interesting background. So his conversation with Tucker Carlson was pretty enlightening. So I did this X space a couple days ago. We were talking about the disclosure of dark tech. And we were talking about all these different people that are kind of coming out of the woodwork. Dr. Stephen Greer. There's been Bob Lazar was kind of the original within the internet memory, really. Bob Lazar was kind of the archetype of the guy coming out saying very odd things about UFOs and alien technology and that sort of thing. And now we're seeing more and more of this happening. And I think there's two things that are true with this. I think part of this is just a product of social media, and as the censorship aspect of social media is, we're kind of going through the different life cycles of it. And there was the period of everything just being kind of open and free, but it was very decentralized. There was no town square. And then the town square formed and everything flowed into the town square, but then it got locked down. Then you got the censorship clampdown where certain things are not allowed to be talked about. But the problem with that is that by clamping down on certain things that you're not allowed to talk about, they Streisand affected those into the public consciousness, which then created a lot of demand for countering the censorship and opening things back up again. So now we're starting to get to where, because of the political forces at work and because of just sort of the ornate or organic, innate human social dynamics, these things are being revealed and being pulled out into the mainstream to be talked about. So by default then, and especially if people who go down some of these rabbit holes keep like mysteriously winding up at the bottom of a river, especially right after they say, hey, I just figured it out, whoop, they just, double tap themselves in the back of the head, then the natural response to that is going to be, all right, well, we need to figure out a way. If I'm one of these people who's discovered this free energy technology or this secretive thing, and I need to release it, the best way to release it is to do it through a large platform and ensure that it gets out to as many people as possible, so that then you get many different people all working on it at the same time, and they can all start talking about it themselves, and it becomes much less hard to suppress. So there's kind of an organic thing to that people would naturally arrive at something along these lines. So then the flip side of it is, I absolutely believe that there are, let's say, dark interests that have a motivation for disclosing these kinds of things. I don't think that all of those dark interests are malevolent. I think that some are and some aren't. And then this is like a whole new world that's going to be exposed to us. But those dark interests are also working at taking advantage of this same sort of opportunity to disclose things. We talked about disclosure yesterday. So I think both of these things are happening simultaneously, which would lead me to lean more on the side of, I think that Candace is being fed something to talk about because someone wants her to bring these things into the conversation. So the very idea of this sort of groundbreaking, earth-shattering information being mainstreamed and being normalized is going to have profound effects on. It's such a fundamental rewrite of reality that as people begin to take it on, it's going, regardless of the actual truth, having sufficient number of people take this on as true is going to have a transformative effect on reality. The way that human beings as a species interact with it and understand it. And if this sort of thing is coming out, inevitably, for whatever reason it's coming out, that means things are going to change. And when things change, opportunities are created. If there are people who are conspiring to create change, to create an opportunity, then we can also recognize the change and recognize the opportunity and take advantage of it ourselves. So this whole thing, I don't want to get involved in throwing shots at friends. The idea that questioning the moon landing is anti-white is so astronomically, pardon the pun, missing the point that it boggles the mind. Because really, like which would be more impressive, going to the moon or going to the moon and convincing the entire world, executing the most fantastical conspiracy of all time to mass propagandize people into believing the story about going to the moon was something completely different than what it was already? Has there been another, like if you assume that narrative was true, then the people who crafted that, who concocted that, are the most brilliant people of all time. Because not only did they go to the moon, they also convinced everybody that they went to the moon in a completely different way than they actually did. So they managed to do it secretly and release a story that everybody bought. It was the most amazing piece of military technology or psychological warfare ever accomplished. Which is more impressive? To me, the latter is vastly more impressive. And I don't know if that's what happened. I think there's a good chance. I think the truth lies more in that direction than it does in the standard model, the standard story, which interestingly depends, like, is exclusively identified. The apotheosis of this model is a Jewish man. What gives here? This entire story is all a part of a construct that was presented that completely deviated the trajectory of physics directly into this carefully crafted, exceptionally liberal narrative that then all of this science was built upon. If there's like any single event in world history that's been more impacted by a Jewish person, if there's any event that's happened, like relativity would be like the single biggest influence by a Jewish person of all time. So, again, what gives here? And I mean, it gets into the conversation of what does white even mean, which, yeah, we can have that conversation another time. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I've got to get through, so maybe we'll get into that at some other point. But back to the Candace Owens thing. This guy tweeted about this, and the person who DM'd her, had put put Witzett's tag in there, and then, oh, for crying out loud, why does it do this? Candace Owens. Let me find the back and forth. Well, actually, let's go at it this way. We'll take Ian Carroll. So you guys probably know who Ian Carroll is. You've seen him around. He posted this. 2024 is the year that all lies will be exposed. And you've got this video here. I mean, yeah, it seems maybe moderately interesting. I'm gonna watch it later on. But in the replies, that guy Justin Roberts says, "Hey Ian, let me know when you're ready for flat Earth." And Ian says, "Do you have an answer for how millions of regular people go to work every day to make and use products like cell phones and cars and GPS chips and cameras and all sorts of things that rely on science functioning as a composite that would completely break down if the Earth was flat? If so, I'm all ears. I've never heard a cogent rebuttal to that very basic common sense point. Almost every good piece of evidence I see cited for flat Earth, NASA, Antarctica, etc., perfectly describes a round Earth where they are covering up ET phenomena better than it describes a flat Earth." And this has been my position on it for a long time, basically until I encountered Austin Whitsitt, who actually gave a compelling answer to this. This has been my opinion on it, essentially. I find it interesting, but this is Whitsitt's response. So somebody had tagged him in it. He says, "Literally nothing you named would break down if the Earth was flat. That doesn't even make sense. GPS simply takes data and then applies it to a projection, and I think this may have been multiple corrections are made." I don't know what it was supposed to say there. "GPS actually refutes the modern heliocentric globe theory in multiple ways. It uses anisotropic signal correction, which directly refutes relativity as it predicts an invariant constant speed of light. The atomic clocks actually have to account for velocity, v plus c, which also directly refutes relativity. Ron Hatch was actually brought in to create a system to make corrections for the discrepancies because relativistic correction failed so miserably. Also, GPS makes meridian corrections, which effectively serve as a method to correct the improper distances that the data actually reveals, so that it can then be confirmed to the spherical long lat coordinate system because it doesn't match. What you'll never actually hear a rebuttal to is these points because no rebuttal exists. You will just see people claim I'm lying and basically asserting it works perfectly and matches relativity. It objectively does not. And I have never heard, I've dug through tons of his debates. I've listened to probably, 15 debates. And every single person has the exact same arguments that don't address anything that he's saying, and I'm not smart enough to figure this out for myself. I need the actual experts to take these things on and address them and not just hand wave them. Because I can't go spend my entire life getting caught up to the doctorate of physics level. But he has actual physics professors who come on and debate with him, and none of them will actually address this. He says, just like with every subject, there is the group that mindlessly regurgitate mainstream propaganda, and there's the group that diligently research independently. I think he's being very gracious to his team. Because I think, I talked the other day about how the way these sorts of things, if there's some sort of hidden knowledge or something that's being completely overlooked or being suppressed out of the mainstream, the first people who are going to look at it and start saying, hey, there's something over here, they're going to be the people who are already inclined to kind of have a few screws loose. May not be that bright, might not be very self-aware, may have very, they're not looking for a comprehensive answer. They're just looking for another low-resolution view of the world, and they're just kind of the polar opposite of the existing narrative. And eventually, you have to get the smart guy to come in, like the Austin Whitsitt, to come in and actually be able to go toe-to-toe with the existing experts to demonstrate that they aren't actually experts in anything except for their own constructed system. And then many times, they don't even know it as well as he does. He's like, no, you're making the wrong argument. The argument you're making doesn't even make any sense from your perspective. This would be the argument you would make from your perspective that would be remotely coherent with what you're saying. So I want someone to come out and actually engage with the substance of what he's saying. Until then, the people who just screech at him and just get indignant and scoff and whatever, like, I'm going to see you the same way that I see the people who were aghast that someone would suggest there was a lab leak, or that maybe there might be in these mandatory medical procedures, there might be something wrong with those. It's the exact same personality, and I just can't take you seriously. He says the top evidences invoked for flat Earth are not NASA and Antarctica. It's the falsification of the radius value with long-distance observations, laser tests, line-of-sight microwave and radio wave transmissions, and much, much more. And here's a link here, ethercosmology.com/tag/GPS, which is sources for GPS that will almost assuredly be ignored and never rebutted with substantive specificity. So this guy tagged Ian, Cancel Clothes Company, Cancel Cloco is his handle, tagged him and said, this is the guy you need to talk to. I said, this needs to happen. Because if anything could actually get any kind of productive dialogue going between the standard model and the best of the alternative explanations that I've found, at least, it would be someone like Ian or Candace Owens, who he also reached out to, and that he got a lot of traction on this, so I'm sure she's going to see it, and I'm sure she's probably going to reach out to him. I would say within the next month, there's like a 95% chance that Candace Owens interviews Austin Whitsitt. And that's when this sort of thing is going to go mainstream. It's already pretty close to it. I'm just telling you guys what's going to happen. Chris says, experts do a lousy job explaining the moon landing. They talk like politicians. At the end of the day, they expect people to just trust them. Yeah, right. CB, be me, look up, moon be round. Yeah. Shut up, Siri. I'm not talking to you. Yeah, like, to me, I don't know what the moon is. I'm not saying, no, the moon is actually this thing, or the moon doesn't exist. I've seen really compelling ways that the moon could actually be like a reflection. That it could be, well, number one, the position would be that it's much closer. So like any flat Earth model, basically, any coherent flat Earth model, I know some of you are going to laugh at that notion, but they exist, is going to also be associated with a local moon. So the way I look at that is I'm like, well, if the moon is a lot closer, that's probably even more likely that people have been to the moon. Whatever that means. Going to the moon, whatever the moon is. If it's a big ball of rock, if it's a reflection, if it's what's the term? Sonoluminescence. If it's water, I don't know, like it could be anything. But if it's closer, then I think it's more likely that people actually went to the moon. It's very obvious that the story of how people went to the moon is bullshit. It doesn't withstand like the slightest amount of good faith scrutiny. John MC says, the main thing I've noticed about flat earthers is that they know nothing about cartography and projections, nothing about geometry, plane, or spherical. Then you need to listen to Austin Whitsitt, because he absolutely does. That's basically all he'll talk about. Like he goes through all the rudimentary basic stuff that he's basically got memorized at this point, because like that's everyone will just spurg out about the stars seeming to go in opposite directions in the different hemispheres, or some of the really mundane basic stuff that isn't a proof one way or the other. There's ways that it could work using either model, but he has to wade through all of this horse shit. And if he gets someone who's honest enough that will actually go through that and not just dig their heels in and scream, then he can actually get into dealing with this sort of thing. projections, cartography, how what's it called? When the guys, fuck, I just completely forgot the term. You have the one guy who stands with the stick, and the other guy looks through the little doodad, looking for trying to figure out the level. I just completely spaced on what it's called. One of you guys is going to have me. But he's actually done multiple debates with people. He's not even like an expert in their field, has no experience in their field. Surveying, thank you. Yes, surveying. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. So he's done multiple debates. He's done a debate with a professional surveyor and kicked the guy's ass. The guy didn't even understand. He had to like look stuff up and realize there was stuff about his own industry he didn't even know that Austin did. And it's not like anything necessarily special about Austin. He's just smart, and he's willing to really dig and educate himself on these things. I'd love to see someone else. I'm not particularly married to Austin. Give me someone else like Austin who's got the intellectual honesty and the mental acuity to be able to take this stuff on and then regurgitate it to people. Anyways, didn't expect that to take as long as it did. But what we've got now is, yes, we're going to do this. So first, a funny clip that's adjacent to the conversation here. And then, actually, no, wait. Sorry, guys. I already did that one. I want to save the women thing for last, and that was going to segue into the women thing. So let's do the Trump thing. Right here. Yes, thank you, Bryce. Absolute ding-dong. Couldn't think of the term surveying. See, I don't claim to be an expert in any of this stuff. I just listen to them, and I understand them. And I'm saying, okay, everyone, hey, I found something. I'm one of the morons who goes and looks in the weird corners and finds the interesting thing. Like what is this? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't go with this. You guys who know what to do with this, you look at this. You address it. And if you're not going to address it, I'm going to go find someone who will. That's my job. It's Austin Witsit, John. Witsit. His channel is Witsit Gets It on YouTube. He's got a bunch of good stuff. He's got tons of long form. He has one playlist called Schooling Globers, and then he's got another one called, which yes is corny, but pandering to his crowd. And then the other one is called something about relativity. So he does a lot of digging into the history of physics up until basically Einstein, and then a lot of quotes from Einstein and going back and forth on the politics of what was happening in physics at the time, and the different arguments from the different sides and the math and everything implied by all of it. It's all stuff that's over my head. I can understand it while I'm listening to it, but I can't like internalize it. I don't have context for it. There was one other thing that I was going to mention. Oh, Formscapes is another good channel. Here, I'll type it for you. Austin Witsit. Formscapes is another really interesting channel. It's extremely dense and abstract, but he's working on a theory of the ether, like ether morphogenetics and all that sort of stuff. And he's touching on a lot of the same stuff that Austin is. Because Austin's focus isn't really the Earth itself. It's actually the ether. And if you understand what the ether is and why the ether necessarily is there, then the rest of the model falls apart after that. So they basically just threw the ether out so that they could make their model work. And then they've just built like elaborate mathematical models to try to accommodate for these massive gaping holes in the theories. And so they can, if they do a test, if they put together an experiment that says, we want to create this outcome, then they could create the outcome of the experiment that they're trying to create. But it's not actually testing what they're trying to test. So they're just giving descriptions of things that are happening, but not actual explanations of what's happening behind it, which inevitably gets you into electromagnetism and the ether and all this sort of stuff, vortexes. So that's the stuff he's really focused on, and that's what I find compelling. And so that's why I say his model itself has a flat plane like Earth that we experience, but it is not a disc. It's not like a disc suspended out in the sky. It's actually a sphere. It's a spherical shape itself in a sense, except we live inside it instead of on the outside of it. Anyways, you could go watch all of his stuff if you'd like to. Also, Greg Reese on InfoWars had a conversation with him where he went into his toroidal model. Okay, Donald Trump. So this guy tweeted, Mahdi480 said, the Donald Trump of 2020 and 2016 would not have had the discipline and restraint to remain radio silent while his opponent's campaign and party are plummeting downward nonstop with each news headline. This is a really good point. I hadn't thought of this. Yeah, and now this could be because he's angrily yelling into the void on Truth Social, and I'd never go to Truth Social. I don't even have an account. I don't even know how to find Truth Social. So, maybe he's out there yelling and we're not hearing about it, but I would imagine if he was, he'd be dropping bangers and they would be coming over to Twitter because that's basically what Truth Social exists for, is to create content for people to share on Twitter. So I thought this was very interesting. Trump's very quiet. And is this Trump being quiet because Trump thinks it's time for him to be quiet? Is this Trump being quiet because, his handlers are telling him to be quiet? I don't know. But it's very interesting. We're dealing with a different Trump than we had in the past. So then, related to this, well, first of all, we'll do this. We'll do this one, and then we'll do that one. This guy says, I've had a theory basically since Trump first emerged as a candidate that his formula for success was entirely a function of how the media treated Romney in 2012. So we'll come back and read this here in just a minute, but watch this. With the memory of the most recent debate in your mind, watch this one.
Thank you very much, Jim, for this opportunity. I want to thank Governor Romney and the University of Denver for your hospitality.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon, is the man I'm looking at right now.
But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office.
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor to be here with you, and I appreciate the chance to be with the president. And congratulations to you, Mr. President, on your anniversary. I'm sure this was the most romantic place you could imagine, here with me. So congratulations.
Having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? What are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give an answer. I didn't have sex with a porn star.
Tuition low for our young people. When it comes to our tax code, Governor Romney and I both agree that our corporate tax rate is too high.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because he made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it.
The total initiative.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
On energy, Governor Romney and I, we both agree that we've got to boost American energy production.
And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing. Hey, let's not act like children. President Trump, we're going to let's not act like children.
You are a child.
First, education. I agree. Education is key, particularly the future of our economy.
The whole world is blowing up under him.
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Kim Jong-un, we sent love letters to, and Putin, etc.
Taxation. We agree. We ought to bring the tax rates down, and I do, both for corporations and for individuals.
Molesting a woman in public.
I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner.
I also believe that we've got to look at the energy sources of the future, like wind and solar and biofuels.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with,
Do we embrace a new economic patriotism that says America does best when the middle class does best? And I'm looking forward to having that debate.
Oh, man. I'm glad. I'm honestly glad that they edited they sped up and turned the 2024 debate into chipmunks. Just made it better. So this guy says, politics of all parties entirely aside, Romney was and is clearly extremely competent, principled, intelligent, and well-tempered. I understand what he's saying. I don't know about intelligent and principled. Competent, yeah, he's definitely competent. And well-tempered, a little too well-tempered. Here's the Longhouse speaking, but I understand the point. And yet the media smeared him half to death with what we now more easily recognize as childish leftist insults that are resorted to when you have nothing substantial to say And you want somebody to fear for their reputation and prostrate themselves before your cultish zealotry to embarrassingly beg for forgiveness. Obviously, the media did this because it's an extension of the Democratic Party and it needs its guy to win. It also worked much more effectively back then because people took it more seriously. If the presidential candidate is a racist, sexist pig, isn't that worth knowing? Why would they lie about that? Trump's core insight wasn't on immigration, NAFTA, China, etc. It wasn't political at all. It was aesthetic. If these people are this corrupt, unserious, and boring, then simply refuse to play their game. Don't waste time addressing the lies, just laugh in their faces and call them ugly and stupid. You can't win playing by their rules, so make up your own rules and revel in the entertainment value of how shocking it is to everybody that you aren't begging for forgiveness of your non-existent sins like a fucking pussy. And that basically explains the video below. They're going to call you a racist, sexist pig no matter what you do. Moreover, everybody knows that now, not just for presidential candidates, but for every walk of life. It's corrupt, childish entertainment no matter how you try to deal with it, so you may as well recognize the game being played and dominate it. In that light, then, this video is one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Congressman Wesley Hunt reveals jaw-dropping Trump story.
What president?
Come on, scroll down.
I'm gonna give you my favorite President Trump story. This is my number one favorite of all time. When we were negotiating with the Taliban, while President Trump was still the president, President Trump wanted to get out of Afghanistan, but he wanted a conditions-based withdrawal, meaning that you do what we tell you to do, and then we will start pulling troops back slowly as long as you abide by our rules. It's President Trump and Mike Pompeo, and they are talking to Taliban leadership in the room, and they had one translator in the room. President Trump looked at the Taliban leader and said this: I want to leave Afghanistan, but it's going to be a conditions-based withdrawal. And translator translated. And he said, if you harm a hair on a single American, I'm going to kill you. And the translator goes, and Trump goes, tell him.
Yes. Tell him what I said.
Tell him what I said. Reached in his pocket, pulled out a satellite photo of the leader of the Taliban's home and handed it to him.
Shut up.
Got up and walked out the room.
So, I'll say first of all that when I'm looking for the hard hitting stuff, I go to Sage Steele's podcast. That's where I get the real news. So on its face, I hear this story and I'm like, that's really fucking cool. I want that to be true just because of how fucking cool that is. At the same time, it's like, is this the Trump equivalent of playing golf and getting a hole in one on all 18 holes? You know, like Kim Jong-un. Is this just a completely constructed mythology? Now, he's describing something that a number of people were present for. So if it didn't happen, it'd be pretty easy for someone to come out and say, oh, no, that never happened. So, I mean, maybe we'll hear more about this. Maybe the Taliban doesn't give a shit. And it's just some guy on Sage Steele's show talking about, some congressman telling a story to get in Trump's good graces that makes Trump look like a badass. At the same time, this story is believable. Like, think about someone attributing this story to a President Romney or George W. Bush or Clinton or Obama. Like any of these guys. It'd be like, yeah, right. Like I could maybe see Biden doing something like that, like back when he had his wits about him. Maybe. But with Trump, it's actually conceivable. I could see Trump operating this way. I could see that being something that, based on the way he's talked and the way he's campaigned all along, it seems that he very sincerely is an American, sees himself as an American, is proud to be an American, is proud of people who are Americans, and would be like, yeah, I want this withdrawal, but if you hurt a single American, I'm going to kill you. We've heard lots of reports of that. This is basically the way that he governed on a geopolitical level. He was like, you guys are going to give me what I want, or I'm going to massively retaliate against you. And people are like, is he serious? It's probably not worth risking. Let's just assume he's serious and just do it. So I want this to be true. I transparently am hoping this is true, because if this is true, this also bodes very well for the future, but it's also just a really cool story. And I think that America needs really cool stories and cool mythologies to rally around like this. I had a related thought here quote tweeting friend of the show, Jim Sharp, on Twitter. He's just one of the best Twitter avatars of all time. He says, the comeback that Trump is 4 months away from completing is the greatest political comeback story in U.S. history. Think of how low he was in mid-January 2021 and has battled back against the entire media, legal, and state apparatus. He not only climbed back up with the American people, but managed to get financial oligarchs and powerful people to bend the knee along the way. It's truly remarkable what he's done. And I said, it's generally remarkable how he maintains his energy as a nearly 80-year-old man subjected to more pressure, scrutiny, and hostility than the vast majority of humanity will ever experience. Don't see any way around that as strong evidence for the integrity of his constitution. And this happened. This was initially cast as being right after the debate. This was actually a year ago. But quick video of Trump.
I don't think so.
You think Biden could do that? I don't think so. So James Kirkpatrick says, you can ruin his business, steal his money through lawfare, threaten him and his family with jail, and basically throw the entire concept of rule of law out the window to get him, and he takes it. But Biden forgot. Lie about your golf handicap and you're a personal enemy. I love the old man. Okay, so I think that was all the Trump-related stuff here. So bear with me for a sec as I run through and make sure that I've got all my tabs closed. So everything else here is all related to, yes, all related to women. All right. So here's a funny video that will lead us into this. Before I do that, I noticed I had a super chat I missed here. Bayer Alonzo, $4.99 US. It says, Hippo character applauds whilst nodding in approval, saying GG. He must have had a sticker or something in there that, will it show up if I put it up here? No. Restream apparently doesn't send the stickers through. And let me see if any of you guys have said anything. Kay Akins said up here, she said, I used to think my chosen field was uncorruptible versus nutrition, health, etc. Now I'm starting to wonder. Thanks. You're welcome. See, Kay, you're the exact type of person that I want looking into this sort of thing and taking it seriously. Vorpal Anvil says Black Pill talks about this stuff a lot. Maybe hit him up. Oh, interesting. He talks about like the flat Earth and the moon landing and all that sort of stuff. I've never really followed him. I've seen a couple of his videos, but a guy that calls himself Black Pilled, I kind of just want to keep keep a little bit of distance away from. There's I understand he's doing it ironically, but it's kind of like having water in a can that says liquid death on it. I feel like I probably shouldn't drink that water. It's sort of the same kind of thing. John Lloyd says, has anyone heard of Astana, a random brand new super city built in Kazakhstan with a ton of esoteric architecture? You know, you're not the first person to bring that up to me. So I'm going to make a note of this to go look at it later on, because this actually ties in to another interesting schizo interest of mine right now, Tartaria and the Grand Tartary Empire. So I'll look into that later. Thank you for that. Chris said, Matt, you need to get Austin on your channel. That would make for killer content. Yes, I want to do that. I've been trying to figure out what to talk to him about. And it may be that I've lost my opportunity. If he starts getting requests from people like Candace and Ian Carroll, then I probably can't even get his attention anymore. But, you know, I'm kind of like, what is the stuff that he would want to talk about that most people don't ask him about? Maybe that would be my angle. Okay. Kay says toroids are a pattern in permaculture. Yes, toroids are a very interesting thing. I'll post some stuff in the Discord later. I think, Kay, I'm pretty sure you're in the Discord. I'll post some stuff in there later about things having to do with toroids and their presence in various different places. Okay. Faithful Faustian says, you should read the knowledge before arguing, steelman the argument, and then refute it. Most of you are lazy and dishonest. I'm literally telling you where to go to get all of that. I'm literally telling you this is everything that I've consumed. Go consume that. You could sit here and have me. I could just have to like try to memorize all these things and just regurgitate it back to you, or I could just direct you straight to the source that you can watch as easily as you're watching me. Literally, all you have to do is search for a name, click a video, and start watching it. And it will steel man literally everything that you're talking about. He says Greeks proved the earth round over 2,000 years ago. Yes, they did. The proofs for that the earth was round are not exclusively proofs of the earth being round. Let's see. Anything else here? Whiteness isn't complicated. It's a continuum of Western tradition. It says before the Indo-Europeans came and settled Greece, Asia, and the Levant. Okay, so it doesn't have anything to do with skin color. You're saying whiteness is an idea? I'm sure you don't like the notion of America as an idea. But you're saying whiteness is an idea? The Western tradition? What about Genghis Khan? Is Genghis Khan a Western? Is that part of the Western tradition? Because he was an Aryan man who was fair-skinned with red hair and green eyes. So is he white? I'm open to that idea. I think it'd be interesting if Genghis Khan was white. The whole white thing is just so... I understand what you're trying to get at. I kind of get it. But to get super dogmatic and hostile about it is baffling. Because it's so vacuous. Vorpal Anvil says he talks about it in relation to his ham radio use. In my opinion, he's pretty knowledgeable in this area. Interesting. Okay. I'll go look for some of that. All right, let's get into the woman stuff here. This is where I could tell already that I'm going to piss some people off with some of what I have to say here. But so be it. So this guy here, I did the DEI for white guys yesterday, and this is right along the same lines of just wonderful trolling.
Beautiful trans woman out here. Tell us about your transition, how it went.
Can I hold this, please?
No.
So I have a question for you. Why are you asking me those questions?
Like we're interviewing like trans women and stuff like that.
I'm not a trans woman. I'm a...
No, we're fully supportive. Do you want to talk about sort of transitioning or anything like that, or like what people can?
I never transitioned because I was born a woman.
No, of course you're a woman. Of course.
Does it make a trans woman any less of a woman?
No, you are 100% a woman.
I'm not a trans woman.
Is there another definition that people like to use, or?
You thought I was a man?
Beautiful trans woman out here. Tell us.
This is brilliant. The Zoomers are going to be all right. So, we've had our latest e-thought phenomenon. I have to drill down through a bunch of quote tweets here to get started on this. So this guy says this might be the best origin story for a community note ever, and also the entire X experience in 4 posts. So Bill Ackman says, if you're wondering why I'm posting so much, I'm on vacation. X is how I relax. So we've got the activist billionaire says X is how I relax. So Laura Loomer tweets out this video of the Hak Tua girl, and this doesn't give the actual full tweet. Maybe it was elsewhere. I'll find it. She says, watch, the degenerate Hak Tua girl, whose real name is Haley Welsh, is anti-Trump. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? The new e-thought is anti-Trump. In her first interview since going viral, she was asked about Donald Trump. She said, it's a no from me. Stop giving skanks attention. I got to see if I can find the rest of this tweet. But so Laura says, Bill Ackman says, so we got Bill Ackman responding to Laura Loomer. This is beautiful. We get to watch Bill Ackman have a conversation with Laura Loomer, very gently telling her she's a fucking moron in real time. He says, Laura, you got this one wrong. That was not the question she was asked, and I don't think you can determine her politics from this clip. You might want to review it again. Laura's response. I stand corrected at Bill Ackman. Upon further review, it turns out she was only talking about whether she would perform fellatio on President Trump. Her plans for Election Day remains unclear. So this Grinch-like chick is sitting here thumbing through Twitter, and she sees a brief edited clip, fires off her thoughts on it. She's not a Trump supporter. We can't support her. If she'd said that she was a Trump supporter, then oh boy, then Laura would have been all over it. You could see, this is like a peek behind the curtain. Laura's trying to maintain this illusion of being like a serious person, and she didn't even listen to the clip. She just saw someone saying, "Oh, she said no about Trump," and so she fires off her thoughts on it. And then she doesn't just delete it or just ignore it. and move on. Because she could just ignore this and nobody would pay attention. She actually responded. She actually responded and said, oh, yeah, I guess actually she was talking about whether or not she would perform fellatio on President Trump. Her plans for Election Day remain unclear. Oh, I'm waiting. I am anxiously waiting, Laura. Please find out what her plans for Election Day are. I have to know. If I don't know, then I won't be able to move on. So there's the community note was that she was asked if she supports Donald Trump. She was not asked if she supports Donald Trump politically, but was asked if she would perform an explicit act on Donald Trump. To that she said no. This is the movers and shakers, man. Elon signal boosts it. And Luke Zaleski says the world's richest man has taken possession of a global social media platform used by the world's journalists, scientists, governments, private citizens, businesses, religions, militaries, and health emergency services to share all vital information. It's going as you might expect. I had way too much bass in my voice for that.
The world's richest man has taken possession of a global social media platform used by the world's journalists, scientists, governments, private citizens, businesses, religions, militaries, and health emergency services to share all vital information. It's going as you might expect.
So, good friend of the show, Kruptos, says Musk breaks the total hegemony of left media dominance, allowing contrary voices to be heard, and establishment media are still breathing into paper bags. Okay. So, more Kruptos then. There's a video here. We're going to watch the video first and then see Kruptos' thoughts. So this chick, Lizzie Marbach. So we got the white woman in the car. She has thoughts. I'm going to make you guys listen to some women giving their thoughts. My apologies. She says, am I the only one who's noticed that their neighborhood is being conquered by foreigners? Why are we allowing this to happen? I have 12 generations of ancestors that lived, worked, and been buried on this land. We should not be made to feel out of place in our own homes.
Okay, so I know I'm not supposed to notice these things or ask these questions, but it needs to be noticed and the questions need to be asked. So I've lived in a nice suburb of Columbus for about 5 years now in the same apartment complex. And since moving in, slowly but surely, all of my neighbors have become foreigners. I am one of the only Americans that live in my complex now. If I go to take a walk around the neighborhood with my son, almost nobody speaks English. And all of them look at me like I'm the odd man out. Like, what's this white girl doing here in our neighborhood? If I go to the pool, it's almost all Spanish speaking or Middle Eastern speaking families. Like, I am one of the only English speaking Americans in my complex. And that doesn't seem right to me. How is this okay that I, an American, am being conquered basically in my own home? Is anybody else upset with this? Is anybody else noticing this? That we're now made to feel out of place? And I'm not even talking about race. I'm not talking about race. When I see a fellow black person, I'm like, yes, you're an American. Like, thank you.
When I see a fellow black person.
You for being here with me side by side. Because it has nothing to do with race. I'm speaking about fellow Americans being pushed out of their homes and being conquered by people who aren't from here and people who don't speak our language. It feels wrong. I don't see how this is okay, and this doesn't seem like a strength for us. This diversity thing doesn't seem like it's going good. Yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Am I being irrational? Am I being irrational that I feel uncomfortable in the fact that I'm like the only one of my neighbors that speaks English and actually has an ancestry here in America that can like go to a cemetery and see my grandma and grandpa who were buried here? Am I wrong for feeling like that shouldn't be the case? I don't think that I am. I think that this is perfectly natural to be upset that my home is being conquered by foreigners. Where are my fellow Americans? Why are we letting this happen?
The woman is saying, fix it. So Kruptos says, translation, she no longer feels safe in her own community. This is something that Walter Ong talks about. One of the roles of men in society is to establish boundaries and create space for women to feel safe, especially in their role as mothers. When you let those boundaries being, I think this is probably supposed to say become, I'll use her own word, invaded, and I'm certain this is how she feels. This is a problem. When you let those boundaries be, I will use her own word, invaded, and I'm certain this is how she feels. This is a problem. Diversity, fine, as long as your community still feels intact, a safe, protected space where you can raise a family with your own people. This is how immigration becomes a woman's issue. This space needs to be reestablished. So then, relatedly, let me check real quick what my other tabs were that I had on this. Okay, there's one that I wanted to include. So let me pull this up real quick because there's a story of a woman from France who is saying something quite similar. Let me find this guy, Pascal Emmanuel Gobry. So the original thing was written in French, and he translated it to English, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So he says, I'm translating this horrifying, heartbreaking testimony from Lily R. Many people who don't live in France might not understand how bad things have become. Quoting, I am 26 years old, blonde, with light eyes, and I've always lived in the 6th arrondissement of Lyon, which is thought of as the poshest area in Lyon, and my daily life has become unbearable. I write this because 10 years ago, I could go out with my friends in the evening at any hour without being bothered, insulted, followed, or stabbed. I mentioned stabbing because 3 years ago, my boyfriend, along with 2 of his friends on their way home, were approached by a group of men. They surrounded them, stole one of their cell phones. They tried to fight back, and my boyfriend, in spite of being a strong rugby man, got stabbed in the arm while protecting his neck, which was the target. Someone tried to cut his throat. As for myself, on a regular basis, men follow me, insult me because I refuse to talk back or because I say I have a boyfriend. One day, one spit on me. More and more, I'm whistled at like a dog or like I'm a cat. Acts of this nature have happened to me perhaps 30 times in the past year. 6 months ago, we adopted a puppy. One evening, my boyfriend went out to walk him at 9 p.m. and 3 men tried to steal the puppy. Since then, we only go out in the evening as a couple, and I always carry pepper spray in my purse. In our neighborhood, just in our block, there are 3 drug dealing spots which work constantly, day and night, with everything that entails. Watchmen loitering outside our house, milling about, shouting, getting high, and bothering people, especially women. Every single one of the actions I mentioned, and they are only a part of what we have gone through, is the fact of men of sub-Saharan African or North African origin. A white man has never behaved towards me the way they have. Is it racist to call out what my daily life has become as a woman because of immigration? Is my reality, my daily life, racist? Am I not as legitimate as any other person to call out traumatizing acts of violence just because they're done by foreigners or immigrants? To be clear, I'm not talking about men in general, but specifically men, sometimes underage, who are of immigrant background. Now, and for about 4 years, the way I live my life has had to change to live with this constant insecurity. Now I live with a pepper spray outside my front door, a taser, and a false pistol after an attempted break-in. We've had an extra lock added to our door. We have a security camera in our apartment. In my purse, I carry a second pepper spray as well as brass knuckles on my keychain. I never walk into a building without checking both sides of the street in case a man is following me. I never make eye contact with you-know-who. I constantly cross the street. I no longer leave my home on my own after 9 p.m. I no longer use public transport for obvious reasons. I'm afraid when I'm alone at home. I'm afraid when outside. Now I am always afraid. I do not want this future for my children, who, fortunately, are not yet here. I do not understand people who do not see that France is turning into a cradle of insecurity because of immigrant men. Insecurity to women, but to men as well. Therefore, for your future and those of your children or your children-to-be, cast the right vote. Now, there's a very painful irony about that whole thing with ending with cast the right vote. At the same time, there is some potential validity to that. And this is happening all over the place. This is happening in all over Europe especially. And obviously this is the thing they're importing into the US, and it's becoming that way here. But the responses that I'm seeing to this are a black pill. This is actually another kind of a lead into the rest of this. So Henrik Palmgren says, yet another large scandal in Sweden. Female Swedish police officers have been targeted by immigrants on dating apps, sleeping with them and then handing over critical police information to migrant gang clans that have led to 4 deaths. It is very serious, Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said, after 30 officers were found compromised through strategically selected sexual relationships, leading to at least 4 deaths in gang-ridden Sweden. So these women spread their legs for these invaders, then turn on the very institution they're employed by. Women should not be police officers, reason number 13,564. Female empowerment and feminism is a shit test. Men, get women in order or hostile migrants will, and they will use them against you. He's got the article from the European Conservative talking about Swedish police staff leaking deadly info to gang members. Now, this one is related to that. This one is there, so I don't need that tab. And I already touched on that one. So I'm pulling multiple different threads into one thing here, and then I'm gonna commentate on it. This one, okay, I already got that open. All right. Oh, so this was the Hawk 201. So this actually ties in with what we're talking about. So Based Fat Chad, friend of the show, quoted the Laura Loomer posting the clip of the chick originally. He says, "No self-respecting woman goes around talking about spitting on penises. This has to be one of the funniest things I've read on this stupid-ass app in my life. Even funnier, Loomer is taking her more seriously than anyone I've ever seen." That last point is the most important one. Loomer is the one taking this person seriously. The people who are the most wound up about the presence of this woman and the phenomenon of this woman, the Hawk Tuah chick, those are the ones who are taking her the most seriously. The ones who are the most mad about this conversation happening are the ones who are taking her the most seriously. So the reason that the conversation is going on is because the people who are mad about the conversation going on are breathing life into it constantly. If you don't want that thing to go on, then don't, hey, what's up, Kyle? Then you don't need to make it happen. You don't need to keep bringing her up and commentating on her. I don't care that she's being talked about. This is the first time I think I've said anything about her. I thought the thing was funny, but this is this whole tempest in a teapot thing in the dialogue or the discourse. Which is greatly ironic. And it always revolves around these e-thoughts. Now, like, e-thought policing has turned into its own cottage industry because there's people who think the e-thoughts shouldn't be out there. So you're getting like a phenomenon that you get between a government and a black market or like a government and a mafia where they each need the other one to exist. The e-thoughts need the e-thought police to advertise for them, and the e-thought police need the e-thoughts so that they have something to talk about. And of course, now I'm the e-thought police. It's turtles all the way down. So I've almost got it down to just the last few threads here. This was one related that I wanted to get out of the backlog, and it fits for this. So Curtis LeMay did nothing at Neo Americana. Very interesting guy to follow. I followed him for a little while. Recommended if you're on Twitter. So he posted this. Lego did a study when they created the Lego Friends line for girls, where they discovered that when a boy plays with a toy of a character, he tries to become the character. And when a girl does the same thing, she tries to make the character become her. So if you give a boy a Batman toy, he's going to want to know everything there is to know about Batman, and he'll try to think and talk like Batman when he plays with the toy. The little girl, on the other hand, is going to make Batman go shopping, bake cookies, and go to the prom. That's not to say there aren't exceptions on both sides, but that's the data that allowed Lego to finally get a foothold on the girls' market after decades of failed attempts. If you look at how women approach things like Star Wars or remakes of animated movies, is it any wonder that so many of them want to reinvent the IP either by feminizing it or changing the main character to look like them? So this is the reason I'm bringing this in here is because it's going to inform what I'm going to share here in a little bit. But yet another data point indicating that men and women are fundamentally different. And there's lots of people who seem to recognize this and understand this. Yet then, when these issues like immigration come up, they want to treat the woman as the one being responsible for the problem. But if you understand the nature of the difference between the male and female brains and the role that men are supposed to play, if the women are malfunctioning, it's because the men are allowing them to malfunction. This is the misogyny. This is proper misogyny. The women's malfunctions are a consequence of the men's malfunctions. So connected to those other threads that I just shared is this one. Now this one's for those of you with maybe slightly more sensitive sensibilities. This one's a little dark. Just fair warning. And I agree with some of it heartily and disagree with some of it heartily and think some of it is incredibly gay. And I'm going to explain why. So Noble_X_X_ says women don't have the same biological aversion to being conquered that men do. When women are conquered, the conquerors take them as wives and their genes become a part of the new population. When men are conquered, they're killed. and their genetic lineage is eradicated. That's why men have much more of an aversion to immigrants than women do. Men are welcoming their demise, while women are welcoming their new husbands. Shout out to this guy for this meme. So now we're going to read the meme. The first part, it says, as a question, it says, could that be because you men make it so hard for women to do anything aside from spreading their legs? This guy's response: you women wanted equality and a vote, and you got it. Now enjoy rape and AIDS from the refugees you voted for. Because women do not vote for what is the most logical and practical choice for a nation, they vote for what they want on a superficial level. The small rush of I'm a good person and the thought of exotic foreign dick in their pussies is more important to them than their ancestors, their families, and their children, their descendants, and even their gods. Prove to me that women are different, and I will listen to anything you say. The last time women were worth respect was the German woman of the Teutoni tribe who willingly killed themselves or grabbed weapons and fought to their deaths rather than be enslaved by Roman enemies. You know why? Because they knew they would be raped and turned into harem slaves. Every woman knows this when accepting foreigners or enemy armies into their lands. And how many times have women fought to their deaths to stop that and preserve their honor? Very few times. How many times have women stepped in and done the role of men? Very few times. This must be a defect in women. How do you get your brain this fucked up? The Germanic women and shield maidens, the Gaulish women in Boudica, the Scythians that let women fight, and Joan of Arc. That's basically it. You know why? Because most women do not mind being sex slaves. That is the key difference, men and women, and why shield maidens are the most sacred of women and are largely a dead breed. Men will sacrifice anything for the concept of honor and eternity. They will suffer torture, flames, and iron to prove they are not weak, and that their ideals are not weak. Women care about surviving and about fulfilling base lusts and pleasures. The few that rise above such things are rare and worth slaughtering whole peoples over. You bitch about women being whores because men prevent them from being anything else. What a fucking joke. If that was true, giving women the right to vote wouldn't have led to the decay of the West. Please make a post about how you're scaring the girl posters away, none of you will get pussy, etc. We don't need you here. Women do not belong in politics for the same reasons they don't belong in war. They don't understand any of the repercussions of what they do. I've had conversations with ex-girlfriends where she laid out her plan for us getting married, what to name our kids, and yada yada. But when I asked what kind of world she wanted to leave to our kids, what sort of future they should inherit, she told me, I don't care, I'll be dead by then. So when you asked her to think like a man, she dismissed you. And you're upset that she was thinking like a woman instead of thinking like a man. No wonder she's an ex-girlfriend. She recognized that you're a schlubby little rat. The women are mad up. I didn't understand at the time, but I do now. Women don't give a shit about the future and will only feign an interest to attract smart men. No, women care about the present more than they care about the future because men care more about the future than they do about the present. Women are the thing that makes men care about the present. This guy sounds like I was talking to Cooper about this earlier, and we both agreed that this guy sounds like this is like him LARPing a fetish in his mind. He has this whole thing about men will sacrifice anything for the concept of honor and eternity. Really? Really? So this is the pattern of humanity, is men overwhelmingly sacrificing everything. There's not like examples that I could draw out of maybe men not sacrificing everything for honor. This is just like the good things are all the things I like and the bad things are all the things I don't like. Completely like low resolution, one-dimensional. This is an immature little boy who's like dealing with puberty for the first time and he doesn't know what's happening with his body. And so he's freaking out about the world. Now, the scary thing is, this is likely not a young guy. By young, I mean like a boy. This is like probably a guy in his 20s. Even worse would be if he's like, because there are the guys who are in their 40s or 50s who still think like this. They're little boys in their heads that are having to pretend to be men. And you can tell by the way that they talk that they are not men. They're gooniks. He says, women don't give a shit about the future and will only feign an interest to attract smart men. Yeah, duh. That's why you have to care about the future. Give them a place to care about the present, and they will take care of the present. You have to take care of the future. That's what being a man is. You even implicitly understand this because you're like, well, men have the honor and the eternity and all this. Yes, that's your domain. And if the women are not functioning properly in their domain, it's because you're not functioning properly in yours. When you're functioning properly in your domain, the women will see it. They'll notice it. They'll want more of that. This whole thing is, he's like, well, women will just will gladly spread their legs for any invader, any foreign invader. Well, if you have an idea of, if you have women as, you're thinking in like purely evolutionary adaptive terms, well, yeah, my choice is be killed or have my bloodline go on. And I've got an option where I can have my bloodline go on, so I'm going to take that option. Because my job as a woman is not to worry about the men. My job as a woman is to worry about the children. I'm here to make children. And if the men that I have are too wimpy and pathetic, then yes, I'm going to look for other men. But women don't go looking for other men if they have good men around them. They're doing it right now. Yeah, you're not a good man. There's a severe lack of good men. I'm trying to see this wall of text here so I can pick up where I left off. He says, I'm a wizard, so I'm going to tell you the future. One of two things will happen to the West. One, Aryan men get their shit together and their balls sewn back on after being castrated by their own women and will proceed to purge their lands of all malignant influences. I actually don't entirely disagree with that. Of course, he thinks that this is like, oh, the women, like somehow the women forced themselves on the men and castrated them. No, the men were too busy, like, drunk and rolling around in shit. And so the women were like, all right, well, we're going to take over the goings on here so we can protect our children. We're going to go find men that aren't drunk and rolling around in shit. Women don't want to be married to the mudman. It says, including white women who shouldn't be passing their genes on or raising children. 2, Muslims and Arabs will overwhelm us. Whites will not regain their masculine energy thanks to the estrogen in our water supply, and Muslims will dominate our culture and purge it of all Christian influence, much the same as how the Christians once purged Europe of its pagan influence. So he wants to claim Christian heritage, but he believes that Christians are weak and conquerable in the presence of Muslims. Interesting. It will be bloody, terrible to watch, even from the news. Will involve lots of rape. Oh, I see what he likes to think about. Will involve lots of rape. And unlike the Christian removal of paganism, which was mostly Germanic tribes killing other Germanic tribes, this will be an Arab purge of white genes. They've done it before. Persia, Sumeria, and Egypt, and they will do it again if women are allowed to continue to lead us all off the cliff of lemmings. Women are allowed to continue to lead us. If you find yourself bitter and resentful about the phrase women are allowed to lead us, and your bitterness and resentment is directed toward the women, your model of reality is broken. You are gay. But both fates will result in one thing: masculine energy resuming control. This is the terrible wrath of nature. Either become strong or die to those who are. Women are not strong. Wow, if women aren't strong and they're leading you, what does that say about you? It is as simple as that when it comes to placing trust in them in politics and war. You have a place. That is to be a kind, gentle wife to a good white man and a good mother to his children. If that where are the good white men? Because you're sure not one of them. Remember digital physiognomy? I can tell what this guy looks like. I don't even need to see him. There's certain physiques that would never actually have the headspace that would lead them to write something like this. If that description does not fit you or a future you, then you are bog material. I really try to have respect for women since it's what our Germanic and Celtic ancestors did, but sometimes I wonder if they were foolish to do so, and it was one of the many things that led to their downfall. This is one of those times. I would rather listen to women talk. So some of the replies to this were quite good. Some of them were just retarded, but some of them were quite good. This is kind of funny. This guy says, this is why whenever the debate turns to immigration, I always just say, okay, women and girls only. No men, no boys, not even children. I revel in their repulsion. That's cool. Reminds me of that old green text talking about how the mass graves after tribe battles were full of men, boys, and old women. The young ones willingly went with the invaders. Honestly, I don't know how to view women after knowing stuff like this. I don't hate, but it's different. So you're saying that young women didn't step in and fight the battle. Women don't belong in politics and war, but they also must be the last bastion that fights the politics and war. If all the men are out of the picture, then the women need to step up and be men. There's nothing masculine about that notion. These men don't understand what men are. They don't understand what women are. Have you experienced the touch of a woman? If you have, you'll know that women are not like men operating at lower capacity or something. They're completely different. And women deserve to be provided a space by men for them to be women. This is the obligation that men have to women, is create those spaces. And if the women are not acting like they're in a space that's optimal for their security and satisfaction, the onus is on the men to provide it. It's not fair. Go back to kindergarten. Of course it's not fair. This is the order of reality. You want to talk about like nature and the laws of the strong will survive and this is just the laws of the universe, man. These are the laws of the universe. Now, this noble guy is not the same one, and he seems like he's a little more softened from the fruitcake posting on 4chan. But he says, on 4chan, he says, exactly, and I think this came across as more hateful of women than I intended. Men don't have the choice to accept being conquered and pass on their genes. Women do. It's a smart evolutionary strategy on the part of women to accept their conquerors, as harsh as that reality is. And I basically agree with him. This guy says a conquered woman isn't welcoming a husband, but a rapist. And he says, true, but once women lose the men that defend them, a husband isn't a voluntary election for them anymore. The conquerors choose to take them as wives, whether the women want it or not. Yes. So the whole premise of this at the beginning is like, oh, the women will gladly spread their legs for the invaders. Stupid whores, stupid fucking sluts. These porn-brained gooners. Goonics. And yet here I just played a video of a woman who's like, hey, I don't like this. I don't want all these invaders around me. I have no interest in going and spreading my legs to these invaders. I read the long thing of the chick. The chick in the U.S., her situation pales in comparison to the chick in France. The chick in France is like, hey, hello, where are the men? I don't want this. This sucks. Make this stop. Fix this. So how do you square the notion that women will gladly just spread their legs for incoming invaders with the fact that there are women who are like, hello, motherfuckers. Fix it. Are these just anomalies? Or is your entire view of the world based upon your own anecdotal experiences with women when you don't even know what you're doing? And you've just built up this construct that makes you feel gratified in your resentment. You get to wallow around in your passions. Everything sucks and it's everyone else's fault. Notice how he's not like I need to become this embodiment of masculine energy. Everyone else does. The West needs to recover their identity. I'll be sitting here waiting for you until you do, and then I'll run along with the crowd. I actually have some sympathy for this guy because he's had his mind poisoned by the Goonics. I'm sure he didn't come to this view of the world on his own. It was conditioned into him by men, by non-men posing as men. This guy says, insightful observation. I have a theory that feminist support for Islam and mass immigration is a manifestation of their subconscious yearning for the dominant masculine nature they've chased out of men through feminism. This also explains why 50 Shades of Grey was such a massive hit. I think there's something to that. I would say feminism wasn't something women chased out of men. It was something men surrendered. Men gave it up and left the women just like grasping. Because when the men stop being men, women can't be women. They just get like unmoored and they're just like floating around. Oh, fuck. But it starts with the men. I believe this because I'm a misogynist. I believe that the men form the foundation that the women build upon. It starts with the men. This guy says, this is why women who've had bad relationships with fathers are okay with foreigners coming and conquering their home nation. Men, be fathers, your country depends upon it. Absolutely. To the extent that this manifests with women, it is commentary on the absence of fatherhood that they've had in their life. They want that patriarchal thing, and they'll go for anything that seems patriarchal. This guy says, in France, there are feminist organizations such as Nemesis who directly call out immigrants for their violent and aggressive behavior towards women. I don't see men mobilizing the same way. Indeed, because the men, all of these men, they want the women to just fix themselves. And they have these like homoerotic fantasies of how we're just going to go off and live in a tribe in tents of just guys. And like what, we're going to go drop into the city and like pick up some women and like force them to procreate with us and then just like leave them there and go take our kids and like I don't understand what kind of world these guys live in. They want to like claim the legacy of Christianity stamping out paganism, but then they just are like dopey parodies of pagan LARPers in their heads. There was one in particular that one really good point. I don't remember if it was a reply to this one. I know I have it bookmarked, so I might just go over there and find it. Maybe it was a reply. Oh, here we go. So Kenneth Jackson says, after having spent countless hours trying to make sense of the chaos-order dynamic of women and men, order must be enforced, and chaos must push against it, filing away weaknesses, flaws, and evolutionary dead ends. They do not want to succeed at this. They want to try and fail. This is the shit test. A woman does not want to succeed at overcoming your order with her chaos. She wants to test the integrity of your order. This is her God-given purpose. So that chaos must push against the order established by the men. And these little dweebs are crying that that feminine chaos exists. No, it should all be masculine order. Even the women should be providing masculine order if the men aren't. This is a very sneaky little feminized dance that they're doing, where they're like, if we don't provide the order and then you don't provide it for us, that's your fault. You're the one who's responsible for this, and you need to be punished. You need to be locked in a convent, and you need to repent. Porn brain. It's a basic universal dynamic. Usually women are not even aware they're doing this. It's instinctive. It's their role. Yes. If you hate women for shit testing you aren't a man. Becoming a man, like a key line of demarcation in becoming a man, is recognizing the shit test for what it is and not getting tripped up by it. These guys are on a massive social collective level have been tripped up by the biggest collective shit test of all time. And every time they whine and screech about it, they are just broadcasting that fact. They're broadcasting the fact that they're playing a game that they don't understand and they don't know how to play it, and they're just mad that it isn't rigged in their favor. No, you have to go win the game yourself. Just refreshed my Twitter timeline, and there's a thread from Kryptos. Let's just read through this in real time. Just saw it now. He says, the problem that mass immigration thrusts on us is that it defies reality. That is the way that people act when left to themselves. The vast majority of people do not sort themselves out into diverse communities. When left to themselves, they sort into affinity groups. He's got a screenshot here of a book, Micro Motives and Macro Behavior by Thomas Schelling. What this means is that people can handle diversity to a point, as long as they still feel comfortable in their own community, that they are among their people. However this is defined, race, ethnicity, education, income, etc., they will stay. But if that changes, people will generally move away and find an enclave where they feel comfortable in that space. People sort themselves into affinity groups. They live in enclaves or ghettos. But what happens when there is nowhere to go? No place to find an enclave of your own people. We've lived a long time in the West in relative peace, and we've been told that mass immigration is good for us. And many of us wanted to believe that. We wanted to be compassionate, as long as we were still the majority above that comfort threshold in our communities. People like Michelle Welbeck, who wrote Submission, made the argument that people would, in the face of mass Muslim immigration, become Muslims themselves. I'm not convinced. Why? Because the process of ethnogenesis, how peoples are formed, when studied, often notes that one of the decisive realities that shapes and forges a people is hardship and stresses that require you to band together and fight to survive. For much of the latter part of the 20th century, those forces have not existed. As a result, we've been living off the borrowed cultural capital of our ancestors, spending it like drunken children. The bill is coming due. As the bill comes due, one of two things will happen. The West will die out and its people will be absorbed by others, and its people with it will be absorbed by others. Or the stresses will cause us to fight for our future, the process of which will force us into a new people built on the shoulders of our ancestors. But we will become something new in the midst of this struggle. This is in many places like Canada where we are at. Europe as well, regions of the US. What will happen? Enclaves will form. They will rub up against other enclaves. What will you do when there is no more place to go? You stand and fight or you die out. That's it. Very good thread. Very appropriate. The last little clip I have here is a funny one. We can end on a funny note. This pro-choice girl realizing she's a racist is the best thing I've seen all day. Now, this is lowbrow. I understand I'm picking at low fruit here, but it's not very often that you get to see someone getting rewired in real time. This is kind of like Ben Shapiro debating with a college student bait, but this one's pretty entertaining.
At some point, somebody's truth has to win. Because guess what? Your truth
It's tiny face.
Your truth doesn't matter. That's
guess
still
what?
a truth
You've had
claim.
your truth in this country for the past thousands of decades.
Thousands of decades?
Not thousands. Whatever. That's a little embarrassing. But like your truth has been the narrative of this country forever.
Has
and
it?
you think
Roe
yes,
versus
the
Wade
white
just
straight
got
male
repealed.
truth,
Abortion was legal in this country for 40 years.
and before the 40 years, what was and crime dropped?
Thankfully illegal in
40%
most
after it
And
went.
on top of that, do you
Oh wait, hold on. Do you think abortion lowers crime rates?
Crime dropped.
Oh, Charlie was like, "Ooh, I got a live one." It was like that clip I showed of Pierce Morgan, where he was talking to the chick, and he was like, "Wait a second. What were Trump's actual charges? What were they?" And he knew immediately that he had a viral clip lined up. Charlie sniffed out the exact same thing.
After it went.
on top of that, do you
Oh wait, hold on. Do you think abortion lowers crime rates?
Crime dropped 40% after abortion became legal.
Why is that the case?
It's called a statistic.
Who has the most abortions in America?
Woman.
Black people. Is that so? Are you trying to say the termination of blacks in the womb lower crime? That's a very racist argument.
That is not okay.
You know,
okay.
I can't hear you. Gotta come on.
Okay, but there's a reason. There has to be.
Like, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'm with you on everything.
Okay. Yeah. At some point.
Now, you see the guy come in. I'm with you on everything. This is very subtle right at the very end. Watch her change in posture here. She's sitting here like, loading dial going in her head. But there has to, but it, wait, and she's trapped in her head, and a man walks up behind her and says, "I'm with you on everything." Watch her.
I'm with you on everything.
Okay. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, there's a guy here. Oh, he agrees. It would be very interesting to see where this went from there. I don't care enough to actually go look, but it just yeah, as soon as I saw that, I knew I had to share it on here. So in wrapping up here, this one went long again. The point that Kryptos makes there about forming into enclaves, he's talked about the necessity of creating Christian ghettos, and he's kind of like trying to rehabilitate the concept of the ghetto, which I don't know about the branding, but yeah, I get the point that people have these ideas of intentional communities or local action, all these different things, and these are all directionally right. Like I think this ties into the conversation we've been having about America not really being a finished product. There are different things that are uniquely American that point to the rise of an American identity. But to this point, those things have not yet come to fully identify America. Like I said yesterday, if you look at it from 500 years in the future, looking back at the rise of America, what they'll identify is for the first 250 years or so of America, there's the sampling bias of the people who came to America in the first place. And then you have the developing personality of what it is to be American. But a lot of it was still subsetted into these little local groups that were fundamentally, they saw themselves as, Tennessean or Texan or Floridian or whatever, Georgian. But we're moving in a direction where America, as a matter of inevitability, is going to form its own identity. An identity of what it is to be American versus non-American. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I know it's going to look like something. And it's going to actually appear into reality in a much more cohesive way that may not necessarily be completely noticeable in real time, but in retrospect, it'll be very clear. So we're not at the end, the twilight of America. We're at the birth of America. What America will ultimately be defined as is TBD. But we get to participate in this process of creating, or I don't know if it's creating or discovering. You could kind of parse over these, creating or discovering the American identity. I think this is a very exciting time. Like we get to define what it is to be American, which gets back into the whiteness thing that, white. Okay, well, are you saying that all British and Irish and Lithuanian and German and French and Belgian, like all of these people, there's some fundamental thing that unites all of them that would form like a continent-wide identity? No, it's going to be drawn from that, but it's going to be something new and distinct. And even still, most people will define that most Americans, most people who've been here for generations, will still define themselves as their European identity, their European heritage, not their state level heritage. My family's been in the U.S. for 150 years, something like that, came primarily from Minnesota. But even when they were in Minnesota, they were Swedish, they were Norwegian, they were German. And I have some from like Arizona and Nevada that were British and Irish. And they still retained that. They were like expats of European identities, but they were the certain type of European that was willing, for whatever reason, whatever necessity, they left that area, that land. And they came to this new land. And that wasn't home to them. It was the new home that they were forming. But as generations go on, well, it's home to me. I'm American. I have a European heritage if we go back far enough. But this is my home. This is the place that I'm spiritually connected to. And I see myself as an American. I'm not hostile to Europeans. I have great affection for Europe. I love traveling in Europe. I'd love to go back again. I want to see Europe return to its glory. But it's also like, this is my home. I'm an American, and there are things that are different about how I'm wired because I'm American that set me apart from Europeans. So it's not that America is an idea, or being an American is an idea, because that even doesn't even treat the term idea or the concept of an idea properly. It's that being an American is a unique, distinct phenomenon that is being discovered / created in real time. And that the fundamental battle right now on the spiritual, political plane is what it means to be an American. What is America? What is America going to look like in the future? And this is the domain for men. Men are the ones who are responsible for creating that future. And if women are standing in the way, then the man's responsibility is to figure out how to not have her be in the way without harming her. Because the man's responsibility is to protect and care for the woman, whatever condition she's in. One thing I really like about Raeg Nationalist lately is he's been repeatedly hitting this, posting pictures of like people being really affectionate with small animals. And he's like, you must be kind to animals. You must be kind to children. Someone who's not kind to children, who doesn't like children, who like gets really impatient with them and just doesn't want them around and thinks they're kind of weird or gross or whatever. I can't trust someone like that. Especially if you're a man. If you're a man, you're obligated to be kind and generous and forgiving and gracious and protective to children. Same with animals. Same with women. The man is the pinnacle of the hierarchy. His responsibility is everything below him. The fact that they're below him doesn't make them less valuable, it makes them more valuable. Like the bishop. He's responsible for the whole flock. He has the most souls that he is responsible for because he's at the top. So you can think of the top of the pinnacle of the hierarchy being like the bottom of the hierarchy that supports everything above it. And that's the role of each man. Each man has a responsibility to, within his domain, become the pinnacle of responsibility and to care for, provide, love, and cherish everything beneath him. And the future, what the future is going to look like, is the man's domain. What we need is a future that is provided for the sake of women, so that women can procreate and make babies, and we could build a legacy on an individual and a local and a national level. That's all I got for you guys today. Appreciate you hanging out. 54 viewers, 33 likes. Please hit the like button on your way out and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back. Let's see, tomorrow, 4th of July. Yep, the most important day of the year. You better believe that you guys will get me here. I expect the viewership will probably be down because most of you probably have a life and you're going to be out experiencing that life. My life will be here, streaming out for you guys, bringing you some stuff to hopefully entertain, persuade, inform, educate, whatever, however you receive it. I appreciate you guys and thank you for hanging out with me. Go follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. And, special announcement, as of now, the King Zoomer himself, Cooper, will be joining me for the ASTROLABE tomorrow. So tune in for that. And we don't have the hype man here today. I got to check in on him and see what's going on. Ryan Isaac is filling in. Discord. That's right. Go join the Discord. Join us there. Go to kingpilled.com. We'd love to have you in there. We will be doing a schizo stream on Friday night. Still got to figure out exactly what it's going to be, but I'm happy to take submissions. Anywho, thank you guys.